When we encounter the words that we read today in both Isaiah and Matthew, we are challenged. And sometimes we encounter verses that seem to be filled with a certain hyperbole, and a lofty goal that is too high for us to realistically attain. And especially when I read that last verse in Matthew, as it applies to me, to all of us. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Very soon, a couple of verses later, Matthew reports that Jesus also says that there is, for those of us who want to be disciples, that there is an expectation that we be perfect. And when I read those phrases, those words, they feel like they are so unattainable. Because we all know ourselves, we know how we live our lives, we know how our emotions and our minds work, and we often have less than perfect thoughts, and we often do less than perfect things. Now, in my reading for this week, I stumbled upon something that Fred Craddock wrote. Mr. Craddock is professor of preaching and New Testament at Candler School of Theology in Atlanta. And it really opened my mind to help me deal with this word perfect, with this expectation of a disciple being perfect. He writes this in his reflection on the word. It helps to attend more carefully to the word perfect. The word does not mean morally flawless, but rather mature, complete, full-grown, not partial. Luke uses the same Greek word to speak of fruit maturing, and of course, being finished. John uses it to describe the fully realized unity of Jesus' followers. And James employs the same word to characterize works as the completion of faith. Paul uses the same Greek word to portray the quality of maturity among Christians. Maturity, growth, having walked that walk and been buffeted by the good and the bad of life, we are in the process of growing, becoming wiser, and Fred Craddock says this is how we become perfect. Well, just a little side reflection. This passage speaks about us being salt and light. How we flavor the settings where we live, how we bring insight, light, into the places where we function. And it immediately causes me to think about the places where we might work and the kind of people that we work with. And the fact that we are going to really enjoy working with some of our colleagues, some of our people who surround us, and there are going to be others inevitably that we don't enjoy very much, who function very differently than we function. Some colleagues are tremendously trustworthy and supportive and reliable. Others are kind of in it for themselves, devious and undermining. Do you work in settings where you might have undermining colleagues
Some of you might. Well, Fred Craddock says this about what it means to function at a level of perfection. If you are a disciple and you are functioning where he thinks God wants us to function in relationship to those two kinds of people, people who are our friends and people who probably are not our friends, how do we relate to them if we're asked to be perfect? He says this: however, this command to be perfect comes more clearly into focus and into the realm of reasonable expectation when viewed within its context. First, the call to perfection comes with a discussion of relationships. Second, Jesus rejects for his followers relationships that are based on the double standard of love for neighbor and hatred for enemy. The flaw in such relationships is that they are entirely determined by the other person. The one who is friendly is treated as a friend. The one who behaves as an enemy is an object of hatred. The one who speaks is spoken to. The one who spurns is spurned. That's how we typically behave. That's how we often act out in our relationships. And this call to be in a different setting of human behavior, this call to be a disciple, to attain perfection, is to treat people equitably. Which really causes me to sit down and think, and probably might cause every one of us to reflect on how we respond to the people around us. Of course, we respond with warmth and good feelings to those who are trusted and have similar personalities, and we relate well. And of course, we